Hello and welcome to the instalment of the Wyfutbol podcast with me, Michael Dryden, and Echez Adokru today, and with Gareth Southgate set to release his England squad on May 25th for the upcoming Euros. We discuss who we think should be on the plane or on the bus, because they're going to be playing in London mainly, and who we think Gareth will ultimately settle with. Before we start, please follow us on Twitter at Wyfutbol_ and subscribe with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and YouTube. Good morning, Echez. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Droids. Can't complain. Saw some of the boys yesterday for a good pub session, which was enjoyable.
Feeling fresh?
Feeling fresh. I'd say out of 10, I'd put my health bar at 12%. So that doesn't even make any sense. And you can tell how bad I am because it doesn't even make any sense. So yeah, my health bar is 12%, and if it was out of 10, it'd be a solid 2. But here I am today because I care so much about the podcast and all of our listeners, including Phil and his dog. How are you doing, Jordan?
Yeah, I like the health bar analogy, even though you completely get the wrong way. But yeah, not bad. I don't think you'd be making the plane this summer if you or the bus on your current form. But yeah, not bad at all. Watched most of the Leicester game yesterday. Was really glad to see the Foxes come home with it. You know, the story with the owner dying and whatnot, and his son on the pitch and stuff afterwards. It was really good to see, and it was a good game. And I would have been devastated at the end. I don't know if you saw it because you're out, but the own goal that was disallowed for offside was a Wes Morgan own goal, and it wasn't Wes Morgan's fault. And it was a really good ball from Thiago Silva to get Chilwell in, but it would have been devastating if it had been Morgan. And you just know Chelsea would have went on to win that game. I think, like, had they equalised, especially with the main man Giroud on the pitch, four-time FA Cup winner. So yeah, I was happy about that. But overall, can't complain. But looking forward to Gareth releasing his squad, which would be
on a side note, really quickly. Do you think you could beat Wes Morgan in a foot race?
They're going to say in a fight there. I was going to say absolutely not. Wes Morgan, he's probably quicker than what you think, but no, surely I would. I mean, how old is he now? 36?
Yep.
35?
Around there.
He was looking a bit stocky as well, which is a bit rude to say, but they brought him on like the 81st minute, and like I kind of thought, they're bringing him on because it's a bit of a token. Like, I've not seen him play at all this season. I think he's played since December. I think he came on the Europa League group stages or something like that for them. I think the commentator mentioned. So I've not seen him play in ages. He could still be a good centre half, but I assume, given his age, a lot since that Premier League win, that he isn't. But he came on with 10 minutes to go. Like, so they must still rate him. But I thought he was coming on basically to collect the medal and lift the trophy. And I thought with 10 minutes to go, it was a bit bold. But no, yeah, I'd say I could beat him in a foot race. In a fight, less so.
Yeah, fair enough. At least you're honest. So to kind of kick things off, we're going to go through our fantastic picks and our expert picks, actually, for the England Euro squads. So me and Dryden have sent our squads in. There are a few key differences. I'm kind of going to go into the whys and who's missed out and why they should miss out, because essentially we know everything.
We do.
Which is why. And I've always wanted to do a pod like this because I think it's quite fun to do, and the squad's not too far from being announced. So to kick things off, we'll go on to the keepers. Jaron, we picked the same three, so Pickford, Pope, and Henderson.
Yeah, so no differences there, and I think for most people, it won't be too dissimilar. I was trying to think who would be the notable absentees, because like Pickford, he's had some troubles at Everton, but in an England shirt has performed very well, performed excellently at the World Cup. And I'm a big believer that obviously someone's call up for England or any international squad has to be largely based on their club form. That's where they're playing 95% of their football, if not more.
Yeah.
But how they perform for England is still key, right? Because I mean, that's one of the biggest stages, if they can handle the pressure, etc. So Pickford, I think, is everyone's number one. Pope has been very good for Burnley. He's played for England as well. And Henderson is that young, up-and-coming goalkeeper that I think everyone believes eventually will be that number one, perhaps number one for Manchester United. But who is the notable absentees? Like
Scott Carson, Premier League winner.
Yeah, I was going to say Rob Green, but I mean the heartache he delivered to us in the 2010 World Cup after that Gerrard goal at the start. Like, I thought we were going to win that World Cup after he scored that goal.
Yeah, the less said about that, the better. But yeah, you're right. There's no real notable absentees for this. I mean, potentially, no.
Jack plays like Jack Butland have been in the squad, but I mean, I think he's still Stoke, isn't he, Jack Butland? Or he might be West Brom. Sam Johnston has played quite well for West
Yeah,
Brom, but they're
Sam Johnson
relegated.
got called up in the last group, but I think these three are pretty set. So I don't think there's much to deliberate on this one.
Yeah,
Sam Johnson also ex-Man United as well. So they've got
yeah,
quite a few
true.
keepers on their books. So we'll move on to fullbacks. So we do
Oh
differ.
yes.
So Dryden has gone for Luke Shaw, Ben Chilwell, Kyle Walker, and Kieran Trippier. We have a friend that likes to say Kieran Whippier, and that really bothers me. I thought I think I had to broadcast that one because it's just so it's so crap. Like Kieran Whippier.
And I think the reference, just for for a reference point, is that obviously you see you whip a ball in, and I mean that's probably a bit obvious to most people, but yeah, Whippier is it's just not it's just not great. And to be fair, I mean, is he? I mean, he's a decent. He does do a decent delivery, an early cross kind of specialist. But that goal, unpopular opinion, and I've said this before, his free kick against Croatia in the semi-final of the World Cup. As much as that was one of the best moments, probably of my entire life, Subasic should have saved it, man. It wasn't in the corner. I don't know if you disagree
Yeah.
with that, but it wasn't in the
No,
corner.
I don't disagree with it, but I thought we were bringing it home, so I was too ecstatic
Yeah,
at that
true.
time. But we have differed because I've gone with Shaw, Chilwell, Walker, and Trent. So Trent Alexander-Arnold hasn't made the plane for you, Dryden. Why?
I think it's an interesting argument, and I think as I mentioned earlier, I think you've got to give credit to those that played well for England. And Kieran Trippier would be in that bucket.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And what I almost contradicting myself here, and actually is quite bold for what I'm about to argue anyway, is that I do actually think Trippier is possibly the more limited out of the three if you take Walker, Trent, and himself. But Trent came through a Liverpool team where he plays an incredibly specialist position. He also plays in a very intense pressing side, and that has brought the best in him. Like, he's such a gifted footballer, and like I almost feel like someone of his quality shouldn't be omitted from an England squad, especially some of the squads we've had in the last 10 years, if you think about that. But he's played in such a specialist team. We're not going to be playing high press, for England. International football is so different. We're not going to be pressing high up like Liverpool do. He's not going to be playing like a right midfielder that he does almost for Liverpool in that sense, or even a right winger when they're pressing, or at least like he was doing when they were doing so well. And defensively, he has come under some criticism. So in international football, it's a bit cagier. You might have to defend one-on-one a bit more. I'd rather possibly have Trippier and Walker in those positions. So, I mean, what do you think about
that? I do think your point about playing better or playing well for England does have to count for something, right? We're going to talk about the best 11s later on, and that Pickford kind of comes quite strong for that. I think it's quite a difficult one because of Trent's season. I know he's been playing really well lately, and it's all about balance, right? I think the left backs are very sorted. I mean, I would go with Trent because he's the bigger talent. However, it shouldn't just be based off talent. So it's quite a tough one for me because I think Walker's going to play. So, I don't think it's the backup to Kyle Walker for me in terms of the right back slots. However, obviously there's injuries all the time in these tournaments, and you can't say, oh yeah, let's pick this guy because he's more talented and he was a world beater a year ago and has suffered a small dip in form over more of an elder statesman. Because there is an element as well in the squad of England's squad's quite young. Relatively a lot of key positions, and I was trying to think of that when I did my squad, where I didn't want to have a team where everyone's 20 in a big tournament for the first time or second time. So yeah, I could see your point with Trippier. Kind of talking about the notable absentees, loads of people love to go on about Wan-Bissaka as like ultimate defensive one-on-one maestro. He should be in there because when he's facing Kylian Mbappe, like, he'll be able to it's like people say that as if the other fullbacks can't defend, but I do get the point that he's formidable as a defensive fullback. So he's one that missed out. I think it's hard to be in the England squad brand new now. I wouldn't have bothered. I don't really believe in blooding in, unless if you're exceptional. I don't really believe someone should be blooded in now, so close to tournament football, in terms of like blending into the team and all that sort of stuff. But we've also got down Reece James and Bertrand. Do you think they're unfortunate not to make it on the list, in particular Reece James?
I mean, Reece James, yeah, but and I've seen loads of pundits talk about this. They're not wrong, though. We have got a wealth of talent at right back and full back generally. And so someone like Reece James has had a really good season for Chelsea, played quite consistently. Wan-Bissaka has played quite consistently. Someone like Ryan Bertrand as well has played a lot. I wouldn't have expected Bertrand to go. He's not actually made a load of caps for England, and Chilwell and Shaw for me are just irreplaceable in that kind of squad picks. Reece James is unfortunate just because of the wealth of quality. I think the only thing that could perhaps, for someone like him to get in there, is if we were to take 3, and the only reason we would take 3 is if you think back to the World Cup, Kyle Walker was playing right centre back with 3 centre halves, and although that was a long time ago, and since that tournament where he played right centre back and Trippier played right back, so if that was the case, and if that was Southgate's plan this time, then actually we'd be thinking more of Walker is that right centre back, and we'd have to be taking Trippier and perhaps Trent and perhaps Reece James or Wan-Bissaka. He hasn't played that much since the World Cup, so it suggests not. But he did play that against Belgium away, which was a big game in the UEFA Nations League, where we needed to win that game to basically try and win the group and go through to the final stages. He played with Walker right centre back. I think he played with Walker right centre back, and I'm pretty sure he played with Dyer. It was quite an interesting back line. It might be because of injuries. But then he also had Trippier on the right. So there's that point about what sort of system we're going to go for in that regard. But yeah, I think if you're Reece James and you're Wan-Bissaka, you're possibly thinking it's going to be tough to get in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that point. So kind of to move on to the centre backs, we differ here again. You've gone with Maguire, Stones, Mings, and Keane. I reluctantly went for Maguire, Stones, Tomori, and Keane. I didn't actually want Michael Keane in. I actually wanted. I was going to be really rogue and say Ezri Konsa, but he's not been in England.
Yeah.
He's not been in the England squads. So for me personally, I decided to opt out of who's the one that's missing, Mings, because I think Tomori is playing quite well. You know, he's kind of been on the Lampard wave, and for one reason or another, he fell out of the team. He's gone to another country, new league, and he's playing really, really well.
Yeah,
I think a lot of these choices as well is dependent on what England are trying to do. I think a lot of the time, I don't actually know, which is bad for Southgate and bad for our hopes this summer. I don't really know what England actually even want to do. So if you said to me, England are going to play with a high line and are going to look to attack from the front, I know Mings is quite quick anyway, but, you know, Tomori is a real athlete. So, you know, there's advantages like that. But if England then go and start saying, oh, actually, no, what we're going to do is we're going to, you know, sit deeper, we're going to try and, you know, be aerially quite combative, then obviously you pick someone more like Mings. So it's all quite subjective.
Yeah, and Mings has been error prone at times, and to an extent, Michael Keane as well. Tomori, it's one of them. It's not. I mean, it's not great for picking a squad when actually now, and thankfully now we've finally got players playing overseas. But someone like Tomori, I've seen so little of, and arguably with Trippier as well. But they have been both playing very well abroad. Tomori has been touted. I think we had we did the Italian football podcast episode where they were raving about Tomori, and there's talk of him getting picked up by AC Milan if they can actually afford the buyout clause on the loan deal. So with that in mind, you have someone playing at a high level in AC Milan team. They were leading the Serie A for a long time. It's just it's almost a cop out for me because it's difficult for me to put him in without seeing much of him. But with that in mind, I do. Yeah, we can't then just start discrediting everyone who plays abroad because finally they are playing abroad because we don't watch them week in, week out. So I think what you've put there is perfectly acceptable. Mings has been error prone, so I was kind of on the fence about it. If we talk about notable absentees, I popped in. I couldn't think of anyone, so I popped in Tarkowski because he's played for England. As you said, Konsa is a good shout. I didn't think of that either.
Yeah, so Tarkowski is an interesting one because he believes that he needs to leave Burnley to progress his career. So it's quite an interesting one with him. So he's said to Burnley, I'm not signing a new deal because I know that Leicester have tried to sign him and West Ham. I think Leicester 2 windows back to back. But he obviously stayed because the money wasn't right. And I think he is one of those ones where he thinks he's a lot better than people give him credit for because he's not at a more fashionable club, which probably does hold some weight to it, I think. So, yeah, he's a notable absentee. You know, Connor Cody is someone we've both dropped.
Yeah.
England could play in a 3 as well. So it's not. I just think there are enough centre backs there that can do it as a 3 without him. But he is another one as well. He seems like a nice guy. But I think that's quite. I don't know why I said that. It seems great. So yeah, I think that's set for the centre halves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, moving on to central midfield. So when we talk about central midfield here, we're talking holding midfield, defensive midfield, because Southgate does like to play with 2 kind of almost like screening players or 2 players just sitting in front of the back 4. And actually, this is where England are probably a bit thinner in terms of quality. I mean, the rest of the side, you could argue centre half we just discussed, but the rest of the side we've actually got quite a lot of depth now. A lot of players playing overseas and stuff. But here we're a bit thinner. We've seen Calvin Phillips come in, and actually I'll just start with who we've got actually. So I've got Bellingham, Henderson, Rice, and Phillips, and you went for Bellingham, Hendo, Rice, and Phillips. So good, some agreement there. But it is a bit where we're a bit thinner. Henderson might not be fit, so then that does create a slot for someone to potentially come in. Who do you think would be your pick to come in if Hendo was not able to make the squad?
That's a tough one. I think you're right. Like if you read those names again, so Bellingham obviously is going to be a future star. Is playing very well now. Rice is also a very good player as well. I think Calvin Phillips is an interesting one anyway as a midfield option because I think he is a good player. I don't think as a 4 it's the most exciting 4 or high quality 4 that there is around Europe, but it's still very good. When we're looking at the people to come in though, in terms of who's been in and around the squad, we're looking at the likes of Ward-Prowse, Maitland-Niles, and Eric Dyer. Ward-Prowse, Southgate seems to like or has liked in the past.
Yeah,
I've always felt the central midfield option, those two like water carrier positions, England have always been a bit light. We used to have Jake Livermore back in the day, who was playing as well. Fabian Delph has been a regular in the squad. These are all good players. It's always been an area where England, I felt depth-wise, have been a bit lighter than you kind of need to be to progress at the top, really, because it's such an important part of the team. I think to come in would be Ward-Prowse if Hendo didn't make it. Just because I don't like Eric Dyer is essentially why. And Maitland-Niles, I don't think has played enough at in that part of midfield to then actually command playing there for England.
Yeah, I think it would be a pick between Ward-Prowse and Dyer. As you said, Ward-Prowse has played a lot of football for England. In say the last kind of like the World Cup qualifiers, UEFA Nations League and Friendlies and whatnot. He's played a lot of minutes. Dyer was at the World Cup though, as part of that successful World Cup team. Now I do wonder if that'll hold any weight. Scored the penalty, which I again, in popular opinion, again possibly should have been saved against Colombia. And he can drop as a centre half as well, which arguably Rice can do as well. Perhaps Phillips can. I've not seen him do that, but perhaps he can. Henderson's played there for Liverpool, but we've had troubles there. And because we are a little bit light in terms of quality at centre back, even though we will have 4 centre backs there, so you'd like to think that they'll get picked ahead of one of the central midfield players. But if there was to be some injuries, Stones has been unfit a lot this season, then perhaps that can be an option, and that might sway some thinking. But you've got a 26-man squad now, so in theory, it's been less about picking James Milners and more about picking specialists, if that's still a thing anymore. So it'll be interesting. I really like Rice, and him and Mount for some reason, and we'll go on to the attacking midfield side or the number 8 side. Him and Mount, I think, just get a lot of stick. I don't know what it is, or they seem to have to do more. Like something like Foden, for example, even though Rice is a bit older than the pair of them, but Mount's a little bit older than Foden. Foden has got this kind of story behind him, working class, being at City all his life, like proper Manchester Manc boy who's come through and everyone loves him. But people like Rice and Mount, people love to slate at every earliest opportunity. I don't know what it is, but I like Rice a lot. And it'd be interesting to see Bellingham. It'd be possibly, I think, 17 or 18 by the time possibly 18 by the time the Euros comes along. And it is young to be starting someone. If Henderson doesn't make it, I've put my 11, and we'll come on to it, as Bellingham starting alongside Rice. It's very young to be playing starting at that level, but if he's good enough, why not?
Yeah, exactly. I think the problem with competition ball is the margin for errors are so small.
Yeah,
and no one wants to be England's a big dub and really hyped, and then Bellingham's the next golden boy, and then we lose like 4-0 to Scotland because inexperience has cost us, or there's been a few mistakes that were made. But you raise a good point. So kind of in attacking midfield, you've got a slightly different mix. You've gone with Mount and Foden. I've added in 3. So Mount, Foden, and J Madison. This is boys call him J Mads. So I don't know that. I just made that up. But yeah, Madison. They were the 3 I'd have in my attacking midfield options. So obviously, why did you opt out for James Madison?
Yeah, so just Yeah, so just to let me some context on the numbers. I've added an extra winger when we get there, and Echez has got one less. I've got 5 wingers. I'll say, wide midfield players. Echez went for 4. I think this is an interesting one because arguably Foden has played has started games out wide
Yeah,
for City.
yeah.
They play very fluid football, so he's not a winger. It's not as if he's asked to run down the wing and put crosses in like Aaron Lynn style. He plays that kind of Bernardo Silva role where they're all constantly moving into space. So whether for England he would occupy that sort of position, given we've got talent out there, and whether he would actually start more as an 8 or a 10 if we did play with that. Remains to be seen. I think Mount will be starting all day long and has had an excellent season. But then we are, I mean, if Foden wasn't to start in that position, then we are actually very thin. So it would give way to having that extra man in there like James Maddison to shore up. Jack Grealish is someone that I've put in my wingers as a view. He can also perhaps play centrally, but again, hasn't played centrally or hasn't played centrally. He starts in kind of left wing position for Aston Villa. Hasn't played in like a central position for Southgate either. So it makes you think, well, if Foden and Grealish aren't going to play there, are we a bit thin just having Mount, unless someone like Rice is used in a bit more of an attacking mould? But yeah, I don't necessarily have a really good answer for that because it's hard with the balance of the squad. But I can't think who else I'd have apart from adding Maddison in from an attacking standpoint as an absentee.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I think it is tough with Foden in particular out of the 3 players, or because for my one obviously I've got Foden, Mount, and Maddison. Because then you've got Grealish. There's a lot of guys. I think it's like a modern midfielder, right? There's a lot of modern midfielders where they can play wide, they can also play centrally, they can play. Some of them play 8. So as a result, someone has to drop out. I think the way you've lined your squad up, which we'll go into the wingers later, I don't mind Maddison being out of it. I think he's been unfortunate with injuries this season when the squads have been announced. So he has played and he has been in and out of the squads. He would be 3rd on my list out of the 3 if I was to pick, if I was to put them centrally. I don't know if Foden even would play there, as you rightly said. So I don't disagree with that one. I think in terms of other notable absentees,
Emil Smith Rowe, perhaps. I mean, he's played a lot for Arsenal in the last.
Smith Rowe has played well. I think his problem is that his competition are similar ages to him, so it's not even like a case of this is the future because Foden's 20, Mount's around the same age, and Maddison's 24. So they're not particularly old players. So I think Smith Rowe has a small case. I know he went to the under-21 tournament. That's not a bad one, Smith Rowe.
I think the difficulty is the system again. So if we do, I mean, I don't think he'll play with the. When I say this, we played at the World Cup and it works so well, but I don't think he'll play with 3 centre backs and Walker at right centre back. So, but if he did, then arguably you're going to have 5 across the back. You're going to have 2 in the middle, say Rice and Bellingham, or Rice and Mount, perhaps if we are going to play that. And then you're going to have 3 across the front. I don't even just saying that. I don't think he will because he likes to have someone like Rice and Henderson or Rice and Bellingham above the defence, and then that means you've got to fit Mount in. I just can't see Mount not playing. He's been so excellent towards the end of the end of the season. Has been doing so well. So that means that the reason I mentioned that is because then you've got to think about, well, how offensive is that 3rd midfield player going to be, or is he even going to be there if we play 5 at the back? But if we are playing with 2 players like Rice and say Bellingham or Rice and Henderson, then that 3rd midfield player in central positions should be really offensive. But I just think it's going to be Mount. And do we need extra cover there? If Foden can play there and if Grealish can play there, then so be it. I put Lingard in my wingers, and arguably Lingard could actually play in that position on more of an 8 than perhaps he's given credit for. I don't think he would start out wide, perhaps. So if he was to make the cut, then that could be an option there. So, and I think he'd arguably get in over Maddison for me because
that's fair.
Yeah, just because of his performances for West Ham and the amount he's played. Maddison didn't start yesterday, for example. So, and he just he's been injured quite a lot in the second half of the season. So I'd be surprised to see him on the bus.
On the bus, yeah. And you make a good point, Lingard, and it ties in quite well to our next section, which are the wingers. So you've gone with Rara, who is Raheem Sterling, but people call him
Yeah,
Rara. Jadon Sancho, Grealish, Saka, and Jay Lings. I'm just abbreviating all of these names because I know them
yeah,
on a
nice.
personal basis.
Personally, yeah.
All my boys. I've gone with Sterling, Sancho, Grealish, and Saka. So I have kicked out Lingard, and to be fair, that is quite controversial. Greenwood is also missing out, which is
Mm,
kind of controversial because he's been bagging. You know, he's young, can obviously play up top as well. I would say, yeah, Lingard. So the reason why I didn't put in Lingard was because he's been in such good form, but I think that the four I've gone with are better players and younger, and
mm,
it's a good mix. So I'm looking at Sancho. I deem Sancho relatively experienced as a baller because he's been playing now for Dortmund for 3 years now, playing at
yeah.
a top level, Champions League level. He's a young guy with good experience in football, in my opinion. Raheem Sterling's like an elder statesman. He's only 25. Go back. So how many caps has he got?
Yeah,
He's got
that's
so many
mad.
caps. He's a real elder statesman in the squad, really.
He's only 25.
Yeah,
Oh man.
Sterling's our age. Well, I'm 42, but
Oh, he's
um,
26. Yeah,
yeah,
he turned 26 in December. But yeah, wow. I mean, he's younger than me.
yeah, most of the squad is fair. You know spring chicken, mate. Yeah, he's got 61 caps, so he's like a real elder statesman in the squad. So I think the balance is quite good. I just felt that with Lingard, the other four, I think Saka. Obviously, I'm biased as an Arsenal fan. Arsenal have been crap, and I think that's underplayed how good Saka has been. I think Grealish has played very well, but injuries mattered up for him at the wrong time. I think if anyone was to come in, Lingard was to take anyone's spot, it'd be Grealish. But I think Grealish
Yeah.
can do things with the ball that other players can't. So I'd like to see him there. And yeah, Sancho is nailed on for me. So it is a contention one. I think Greenwood, I can live with more Greenwood being out. Obviously, you left him out as well. I think he could easily be in there, but I just think he hasn't done exceptionally more than the players that we're talking about, I don't think, to be in the squad.
Yeah. I saw some talk in the media about people. I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just like kind of ruffling the feathers and getting a discussion going. But people talking about, well, is Sterling going to make the cut? Of course, Sterling's going to make the cut, man. I mean, I know we've got a wealth of attacking talent now, or just a better squad generally since the World Cup, where we did well. People say, oh, we had an easy run, but you can only play against the teams that are in front of you, and we still performed pretty well. I would say we made the best of. We made the best of our squad and played to our strengths in that. And I thought Sterling was absolutely exceptional. I saw so many sort of fans on Twitter or just social media generally talk about how Sterling's losing the ball too much. Well, yeah, because he's making things happen. Like without
Yeah.
Sterling that side and that World Cup side, it was so kind of stale. Like, and to be fair, to kind of contradict my Lingard point before to extend, or just contradict having him in general. Lingard, I thought when he played and he scored against Panama, but I thought he looked a bit shook in that World Cup. And I know it's the World Cup, but he didn't seem to have the same sort of flair and kind of energy that I've seen him when he's played for Manchester United in the past, and now since he's played for West Ham. So without Sterling, I thought it would have been so still. And even Sancho for England, I've not seen come alive, but we haven't seen him on the biggest stages in competitive football because everything other than a tournament really is a bit non-competitive now, isn't it? In international football, so it's really hard to judge. Grealish he's obviously been injured recently. Has had a little bit of trouble getting into Southgate's plans. If you see it in the last 12 months,
Yeah, he is.
every fan wants to see him, even if it isn't going to be beneficial to the squad, because he's just an excellent footballer and so good to watch. Like everyone just romanticise him alongside Gascoigne time. So I think we'll hopefully see him. Greenwood, though, it would be I think the safer choice, and I think that's why there could be a potential that you could see Grealish out and Greenwood in, because Grealish hasn't played as much. Greenwood's been playing a lot of late. He's been scoring goals, getting assists, doing well. Is 2-footed, can take set pieces. I mean, Grealish can take set pieces too, but I just got a feeling that Southgate will go down the safer route and put him in over Grealish. I think Saka will be in there. He's played loads of us under Southgate and can play in a multitude of positions. He can even play centrally and is exceptional talent. I think he's great. Sancho and still nailed on. So I think it'll be interesting to see whether it'll be Grealish or Greenwood. Lingard might get in there just because we've got that extra man. I think if I was doing a 25-man squad, Lingard wouldn't have been in there. I think he was the last one on my sheet just because he's playing well and again can occupy perhaps that midfield position. We're a bit thinner.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. To be fair, yeah, I think in terms of the midfield options or the winger options, I think we're pretty set on or nailed on. I think there's a few contentious ones.
Finally, we finally got some quality in that area, which is quite decent.
Yeah, I know. England width-wise, have got a lot of talent. I think they've got good striking options. I think, a little bit in the defensive mid area and centre back area, they're a bit weaker, but they're pretty good. And the final section is obviously strikers. So I've gone with Young Rash. You've gone with Young Rash, sorry, Kane, DCL, and Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson. We're going to go on to that. And then I've gone for Rashford, Kane, Ings, and DCL. So Callum Wilson needs to get straight in the bin.
Right. The reason, let me give you some rationale here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, you put Ings. I think Ings is excellent. If Ings was fully fit, and because he's been injured so much, man, is he even fit now? I didn't see the Southampton game yesterday, so I don't know if he's now fit. But for me, Ings will go. He'll get injured. I can't. And he's not. I don't want to say the word match fitness, so I'm not going to say it. But he hasn't been playing a lot. So for me, if Ings had been playing consistently, I mean, how good was he at the start of the season? So I think for me, Ings would be in there if we're talking raw technical ability. I've not put him in there because he's been injury prone, hasn't played much. For me, it's actually between Wilson and Watkins. If you're talking about that fourth one, I mean, they're not going to play, mate. The fourth strikers never play. I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin for me is excellent. So
yeah, he has been.
If he Kane, it depends if Rashford will play as a striker though, and he can do that, and I think he's good in that position. And obviously he's there if the players get injured, so I think he'll pick him there. But it plays out wide a lot. So when you talk about recognised number nines, if we talk about that, then perhaps it's only really Kane and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So then you might need that third striker in case someone like Kane gets injured. Wilson I put in because of his form. I think he's an excellent finisher, but again, he's injury prone. They're actually quite similar to Ings. I think Callum Wilson is getting off the point a bit. He's a little bit of a Jermaine Defoe type player. He's an excellent striker. He's an excellent finisher. He will always be, in my opinion, in the Premier League and scoring a lot of goals and probably end up with a lot of goals at the end of his career. But he'll probably play for England a bit, but I don't think he'll play for like a top 4, top 6 side. I mean, even though Defoe played for Spurs, but at the time they weren't what they are now. So just a kind of off point. But Watkins and Watkins would be the absentees from ours, I would say.
Ollie Watkins is making it. Sorry, Watkins.
Yeah,
I think he's played quite well. Bamford as well is another one.
Very true.
Who could be in with a shout as well. I just think, you're right. The fourth option is highly unlikely to play. And when we talk about it as a group of 3, I'm really talking about Rashford, Kane, and DCL. I think they're the main 3. Especially Rashford is also an option wide, and he doesn't actually play up top that often. But I think, in terms of the fourth option, the reason why I went with Ings was to try and get something a little bit different. I mean, you could argue as well that Wilson does that for you, and the guys Watkins and Bamford do too. But Wilson's got to go.
I mean, if Ings is fit, but what I don't want England to do, and I mean, it's kind of bold in a way because Kane's arguably our best player, one of our best players, so therefore should play, arguably every game. How many times did France rest their best players on the route to the winning the World Cup or rotate them? But England can be a bit predictable when we play against Belgium. I mean, Grealish played and got a lot of the ball and got a lot of the limelight, did quite well, but we're quite predictable. Kane loves to come really deep, and I do wonder if we're just going forward, even though we've got that talent. International football is so cagey. If you've got Kane dropping off, I can see us just not really posing much of a threat, even though we've got that talent. I mean, unless Southgate says to Kane, look, you need to be in and around the penalty area, and says to Mount, you need to be really far forward and have the wingers pushed up to the fullbacks, and then we can actually really cause a threat. But I don't want to see us just starting with Kane every game and just it being a bit predictable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Let's just have someone like Ings, like coming to Calvert-Lewin, like Wilson, who can come in, can ruffle things up, add maybe a bit more pace to it as well, and be a bit more of a poacher than, even though Kane is actually excellent poacher, he's grown into a bit more of a different player. So I just want us to have that option, or a different option to what we do now.
As if you're saying rough things up. It's such an old school English commentary term.
That's my role in this podcast, though. So so to kind of finish things off, because we're running a bit out of time now, would be our 11s for that first game. So I mean they're quite similar hours. So I went for Pickford in goal, for Walker, Maguire, Stone, Shaw, which you've went for that both that defence and goalkeeping option as well. I went for Rice, Bellingham, Mount, but I put brackets Hendo if fit to replace Bellingham. So it's a bit different to you because you've went Hendo, Bellingham, Mount, so you wouldn't have Rice in your midfield.
I wouldn't know because I wanted it to be a inverted triangle, so one guy holding me two further up. Yeah, because I think England are going to struggle against teams they should expect to beat, right? Because if they keep lining up with the two DMs they normally have, then they will, in my opinion, they would struggle. Obviously, it's all preference, it's all dependent on who they're facing. But I would like to see a more attacking team with one pivot and two kind of runners either side. In a Bellingham or a Mount, I think that'd be quite good. And that's my midfield. I think up top you've gone with the exact same. Oh, nice. So you've gone with Sterling, Kane, Sancho. Yeah, I think there's a lot of heat on Sterling to not be in the lineup because of his form post Christmas. But as I said to you, he's an elder statesman in the England team, so he needs to play. There is an argument should he start, but I think this experience thing, right? So we're looking at caps in the squads that we've picked. So Walker's got a lot, Pickford's got a fair few now. Maguire does, so does Stones. Shaw doesn't actually have that many. Rice and Bellingham, very few. Hendo has quite a lot now. Mount, not many. And then you got Sancho's like a few, and then Sterling and Kane. I think it's a good level of experience. So, I mean, if we took out Sterling for a Foden, or I'm trying to think of someone else who've got wide in our squads, or a Saka, I don't think Saka would start. I don't think it's too detrimental, but I think he's done enough in the England shirt and his form generally as a player that he should definitely start.
Agreed. Oh, I think you're bang on with the midfield point as well, because what can happen so much in international football, you watch it and it's actually, we get so hyped up for these tournaments, but it's so cagey, man, because no one wants to lose. Take the group stages, like, you know, if you get a couple of draws, even if you get 2 draws and you manage to sneak a win at the end, you'll probably go through. So any team is thinking that. I mean, the bigger sides want to win every game, but at the same time, they're playing against teams that would happily take a draw against them. So it's so cagey. And so if you do play with 2 holding midfield players, and then my point before, if you've got 2 holding midfield players, Kane coming deep, then actually who we actually got in advanced positions. But with Sterling, he's played so well for England, I think, even since coming into the fold at the World Cup. I just think he's got to play. Sancho is one of them players that is in there because he is exceptional. He's played for Dortmund. He scored goals in the DFB Pokal final recently. So he's got form and class about him. Numbers can't be argued against. So it'd be interesting to see him in an England shirt, because I've not seen him dazzle in an England shirt yet. But, you know, as I mentioned before, he hasn't played that much. And also he played in UEFA Nations League, man. Like, it's not competitive, is it? I mean, no one really cares that, do they? I mean, what's the prize? Qualification to the Euros, which you're going to get anyway. Like, yeah, brilliant. You get the trophy. Yeah, it's great, to be fair. Yeah, it would be good to win it, but you know, it's walking start pace football. All right, and that's all for today. Quite a long one today as we went through that. But obviously going through 26 players, so it's not going to be short. The squad's announced a week on Tuesday. So looking forward to that, to see if we were wrong in terms of selections and to see if Southgate has different thinking to us. But we'll see. So, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Echez, and we'll see you all next time.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.